Hey, we're back with Mobilization of the Week. Now, here's the genesis of this. Turns out many of us are spending a lot of time on Zoom. I'm talking about you. You know who you are. It's us. It's me. One of the things that happens is that when we spend a lot of time sitting, we end up sort of going against, what you thought I was going to say is evolution, but what I mean to say is we're not actually using our anatomy. So you have these bottoms of your pelvis, right? Some people call them the sit bones. They're called ischial tuberosities. And in those positions, those are actually the weight-bearing surfaces of the body, especially of the pelvic kind of bowl area. They're designed, there's not a lot of meat there, and they're designed to be weight-bearing. The problem when we sit a lot, besides the fact that we just don't move very much, which is its own problem, is that we end up sitting on our femurs a lot, which isn't a big deal. Of course, you can handle that. You're a human being. You're amazing. But the problem is that when we sit on all this soft tissue, we basically undergo what I like to call butt panini or glute panini syndrome, where we're basically taking high pressure, high temperature, we're taking those tissues, matting them down, and what we just see is that we don't have good blood flow. It's a lot of just not a lot of hydration to these tissues. They're just not great tissues in this position. Plus, they're sort of at this mid-range, end range for a lot of us, and it's just a recipe for just kind of down-regulated tissue health systems. So, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think real quick, what's the most beautiful person you can think of in the whole world? Like, what does that person's butt look like? Is that, you got that in your head? Like, just an experiment. It could be any person. Doesn't matter. Like, if Brad Pitt and I don't know who else is the most beautiful person you can think of, and they had a baby boy, and that boy grew up to be a gorgeous human being, and they, you see what I'm saying? You're doing this experiment, but it turns out, what? That their butt does not look like the palm of your hand. It should not look like a gibbon butt. It should be layers of warm silk sliding over steel springs. My point is, your butt is a non-weight-bearing surface. So here's the magic. Easy to rectify this. You have a whole bunch of muscles that flex the hip, right? So let's take the brakes off those. And all you're gonna do is grab your favorite roller and sit on it. So long entry into the fact that what we're doing here is we're working on hip flexion in this position. So we're mid-range. I can lean forward and take myself to end range, but we're in what we call a short lever position. That is, the knee is bent. And when the knee is bent, that's very different than most of us working on our hamstrings. When we're working, we tend to do more hamstring things when the leg is straighter. One of the great pieces here is that by having the leg bent, I can feed some slack to this upper portion, which means I can sort of exaggerate what's going on with torso lean. But what I really want you to appreciate here is that whatever roller you have, what I want you to do is imagine twisting and shearing. Now I'm interested in what's going on with hamstrings coming in there, but I'm also, that's my glute, and as soon as I go to the inside, I'm like, that's my adductor, and if I just shift back a little bit, I'm like, am I capturing some aspects of the pelvic floor? So pubic bone in the front, right, coccyx in the back, ischial tuberosities on the side, those sit bones, they make the borders and sort of the bony landmarks of your pelvic floor. So suddenly, if you just tip on the inside, you're capturing some of the tissue systems that end up really remarkably improving how well your hip rotates, how well your hip flexes, how your pelvic floor operates, how the attachments of the system, the bottom of the container of this radial contractile field works. And all you have to do is just rotate, shear, kick your leg, bend, floss, move back and forth. And what you'll see is that as you start to get into some of these tissues, it's gonna feel really good. So here's the rule. If you get on something, you're like, that's so good. Stay on it until it starts to feel beige, until it starts to feel like that, like Switzerland. Not that there's anything wrong with Switzerland, but neutral. My point is that just until it starts to feel fine. Or if you get on it, you're like, that hurts. Stay on it until it starts to feel beige or like Switzerland. So if you're coming like, holy crap, starts to feel fine, or that feels great, starts to feel fine. The point is to give these tissues enough attention that they start to normalize. Now, what's happening here? Are we changing fluid dynamics? Yes. Are we restoring sliding surfaces? Yes. Maybe I'd be affecting intramuscular stiffness? Yes. Maybe desensitizing these tissues in my brain? Yes. It doesn't matter. Working on the system of systems, right? It's probably affecting a lot of different things all at once. But the goal here is see if you can get 5 minutes on one side and really scrub around that pelvic floor in terms of use that ischial tuberosity as your orientation device, work in a 360-degree way around it, and you'll be like, that's the lateral aspect of my hip. That starts to feel like Lateral hamstring, it's an adductor. Don't get caught in, I'm trying to mobilize a tissue. Remember, you're wired for positions, not wired for muscles. So what am I working on here? Working on improving flexion. That's the goal. So this is an easy way, if you're trapped in front of the Zoom, like so many of us in all these talks, grab your roller and then up top, be like that duck, down below, paddling for your life. Hope that helps.